Okay, Alex,
Morning.
welcome.
Thank you.
Would you be so kind as to share a little bit about yourself, and then we can go into your history and where you want to go and what you've done and things like that.
Absolutely. So, morning everyone. Thanks very much for having me up here today. So, I'm Alex Kirby. I know many of you in the room already. I'm the director of Kirby and Not Financial Planning, and we run a financial advisory business in Gloucester. A little bit about me. I'm married. I have 4 children, which keeps me busier at home when it doesn't work. I'm sure many of you can relate to that.
Oh yes. The pressures of a little 5-year-old at the moment, and he's absolutely wonderful. I have to keep my energy up with him though as it goes along.
Yeah, I know that.
Yeah. So I'm curious about. You said you're in the financial services.
Yes.
And I'm curious about what decision in your life took you towards finance. What was that moment when you thought, that's the direction I want to go in?
Okay. As with a lot of people in financial services, it's quite often an accident you fall into financial services. So I left university not really knowing what I wanted to do. I was running pubs and restaurants at the time in the food industry, working silly hours, and my wife then being pregnant with our first.
Right.
Decided actually I needed to look at an alternative. So I ended up working in a call centre for a building society, and that sort of got me interested into financial services. And actually whilst I was in it, started to realise quite a lot about myself, not so much around this is a career that I want to take, but probably reflected on how I got to that point in my life.
What do you mean by that?
So, money is an emotional subject, and I'm sure many of us can kind of resonate with that. You know, whether you've got money or you haven't got money, I think it's very emotive.
Yeah.
I grew up in a great loving family, went to a great school, but actually my parents ran a business that suffered through the recession of the 90s.
Right. Yeah.
And money was tough when I was growing up. And when I got to university, first sort of independence, you realise actually there's access to all this money everywhere, student loans, banks throwing money at you. And I made some really poor decisions at university.
As many students do.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But I mean really poor decisions.
All right.
So,
those ones that really carry some.
well, there's a couple of those. So I bought a brand new car
Oh, yeah.
whilst I was at university,
Yeah.
as you do as a student.
Looks good.
Yeah, it looks good. That's important. I'll come back to that.
Yeah.
I went on holiday to Barbados with my
Oh,
girlfriend.
that's nice though.
So as a result, got myself in all sorts of financial problems, and a lot of that is around probably. I don't think we realise when we're growing up how much money impacts
Yes.
on decisions that we make financially later in life.
Yeah.
And I certainly didn't realise whilst at university making those decisions would impact me so greatly later in life.
Yeah.
And I think when I started in financial services, I started to realise actually some of those decisions won't allow me to buy my first house for a few years.
Right. Yes.
They nearly stopped me moving into financial services altogether.
Mm.
So you start to see money in a very different lens to what you had done before.
Yeah.
And my relationship at that point fundamentally changed with the way I deal with my own money,
Yeah.
but also how I want to now help others with theirs.
Yes, yeah. And I think you're so right. I think there's one of the things that I found out of getting involved in the financial area is the level of emotion that is linked with it. And like you said, it's I suppose the joy, the pain, the frustration, the desire.
Yep.
And if you don't include your emotional state with finance, you're missing
Absolutely, yeah.
the main driver behind it.
Yeah, and I think we're in financial advice in that industry, in that marketplace at the moment. We are starting to see a newer breed of financial planner who is in touch with that point. So rather than being all about the percentage returns, the tax benefits, actually why is it you want this money to grow? What is it going to do for you? And what is your relationship with money that's going to enable you to do that later in life? So I think that's a really big benefit to a lot of our clients, is that we are having those conversations around your emotional attachment to money, and that's primarily born out of what you see in childhood, whether there is lots of money or not.
So what do you think about, I suppose, because when you mention it's about the student years, and what's your take on education with how we deal with art? Because like you say, a nice car, I don't care if tomorrow I have to deal with this.
Absolutely.
Right now I just want to feel good.
Yep.
So what do we do with that type of education?
This is something really close to my heart. So as I said earlier, I wasn't aware of the impact of those decisions, and I think that's voice in society now.
Yes, yeah.
So I worked at Santander before I ran my own business for 9 years. And I started in a branch, and in a branch, I'll never forget my first or second week, a girl came in to take a personal loan out, and she wanted to borrow, it was £5,000. She was speaking to a colleague. And this story sits with me every day. She wanted to borrow the £5,000 to buy a car, and when the advisor said, yeah, the loan payments will be X, she was absolutely flabbergasted that she had to make repayments to give that money back.
Yeah.
And she was an 18-year-old fresh out of school.
Yeah.
But that's society, and that's what we have created through education.
Yeah.
So something that's really close to my heart is educating children around the use of money and what it can do for you, as well as that emotional attachment. And one of the things we're doing at the moment is we're going into schools to do some education lessons as part of careers.
Right.
So we're the lead sponsor for Tommy Rich's career sessions this year, and that is enabling children to understand what money is, how it works, and how to manage it effectively.
I suppose you need a counterbalance from, I suppose, the birth of social media, when what is being portrayed out there is the success, and everyone's on holiday. you like when you go through certain social medias, everyone's having a great time, everyone's got a new this, everyone's got, and so easily you can strive for that, and without that understanding of behind the emotional desire, if you have a counterbalance of hold up a second, let's have a look at it, let's put it together and structure it.
Completely agree. And my daughter's 13, and again, many of you can probably resonate with this. She puts a post on Instagram. If there's not 30 likes in a half an hour, she gets absolutely distraught. So it's that instant gratification, and that goes for money, and that relationship will move further into money. But that's why education is absolutely critical.
Yeah. So, I mean, it's great that you're going in there to help with the education. Do you think there needs to be a bigger plan, or do you have a bigger plan?
I wish I could. I wish I could fix that. I think the government have talked about it for quite a number of years about putting more onto the curriculum. But schools are under so much pressure around budgets and finance. It has to be found somewhere, and I'm unsure how that will play out for children. I think that the next natural step is for people like myself to be picking up those pieces into earlier in life. And our business deals with clients right the way from, we've got the youngest clients at 19, right the way up to 65. And that's quite unusual in our space. And that is because I want to help clients right the way through that life journey. And the earlier I can capture somebody and educate them, the better life decisions they have the opportunity to make in terms of financial.
So do you think there's generally you're saying that there's a change happening with, like yourself, looking at the emotional side. Do you think how much of this change is happening?
So the average age of a financial advisor in the UK is in their 50s, mid-50s. And that means that a lot of the bigger businesses are now starting to attract graduates because they understand the impact of longevity in the business is going to be impacted there. So I think a lot more, I suppose, emotional intelligence is going into financial planning, both through the learning that you get and through the experiences that you're now getting with like-minded individuals at a lower age. And that's not to say that older advisors aren't doing the job, but historically the job's not been about that. It's been about getting returns and saving tax. I think there is a change, and I think that's good for society and good for the industry.
So, if I might have to ask you what you would advise somebody if it was that slightly off subject?
So advice is always very bespoke, and it's always very personal. So we would talk to a client around what their emotional attachment is to money. Because actually some clients don't want their money to grow. They don't need to, they don't want to, and actually just the status quo is fine for them. And that's fine. Others need it to grow, others need to generate an income. So advice is always very bespoke.
I see, So I suppose, and that's the wonderful thing, it is taking the complexity of the human nature and that relationship.
Absolutely.
So what do you see for where you would like to grow, I suppose, with what you want to do with your financial experience and advice? And also, what interests me is also your passion from the pain that you went through and your desire to reduce that pain to the next generation. So I was just curious of where you see yourself going with this.
Okay, so I think there's two fronts to that question. So in terms of a business, a commercial lens, we want our business to grow quickly over the next few years. We can see ourselves having more advisors by the end of next year. And therefore having a bigger footprint in Gloucestershire around how we help people with money. terms of a more altruistic view, I guess that will enable me and my business partner probably to do more of that education in schools,
Right, yes.
and putting together something maybe more far-reaching in terms of Gloucestershire schools.
Yeah.
But I do think there is some support that schools can do. I'm a governor at Chosen Hill,
Okay.
and I see the impact on school budgets,
Yes.
and I think businesses, owe it to the community to help with things like that. And
Yeah.
if that is something I can help with and continue to do, then it's absolutely at the core of what I want.
Yeah. Wonderful. Is there anything else you'd like to share with us today about?
I'll probably just talk a little bit about the benefit, why advice is so important at the moment. So we've talked a little bit about early generational people having advice, but actually advice for anyone is critical at the moment. So who would have thought that Trump would have been elected, that we'd be still having Brexit conversations? I knew I was going to be the one that said the B word today.
Trouble now.
But actually that economic and political uncertainty means that people's wealth, whether it be in pensions, investments, or even salaries, is all impacted by those events. Second of all, government is really trying to push personal provision, whether that be moving the state pension later in life, changing the way things are taxed between now and retirement, etc. So because that drive for people to have personal provision, the reliance on the state is disappearing, and that one job for life, that final salary pension, that's all going, and as a result people need to take ownership and control.
So that's an interesting point, of course, because we're living longer.
Absolutely. Yep.
And I hope to be one of those people that also live longer. So, I mean, my uncle, he's 76. He lives in Canada, and he was just running a marathon and swimming through ice in the Canada, and he's like 76. I was like, wow, that's what I want to be doing.
Yeah.
And that's a young spirit. And I remember when I was younger, 76 was like the time where it was time to wrapping up. And he's just going full on. So I'd imagine financially there's a slight challenge there.
Absolutely, yeah. So, for most of us in the room, I think you'll be looking to live into your late 80s and early 90s as an average life expectancy. And that means if you're retiring in your mid-60s, there's quite a long period of time that you need to financially plan for.
Yeah.
And added to that, because people's health is better later in life, they are more active, and that costs more money.
Yeah.
So I spoke to a couple of people earlier around what are people's plans for retirement, and are they ready and prepared for it? Because actually you will be living longer, and the last thing you want is later in life, when that earnings potential reduces, not having anything to fall back on to allow you to do the things that you've swing through ice, if that's what you've planned to do, etc.
And it's obviously Boston to run the Boston Marathon as well, so you would need a bit of cash to help you get it.
Absolutely, no, brilliant. Linked to that, we also support Abbey Mead Rovers Walking Football Group.
Okay.
So it's part of the football club, but it's a group of 30 odd guys, all over 50, most of them in their 60s and 70s, who come out twice a week to play walking football.
Nice.
And that for me is really important, because that's a generation of people that might not get out. A lot of them are widowers, or have poorer health than they might have thought. So actually getting out and socialising and being part of something is really important. And that well-being is linked to financial well-being as well. Being able to pay those subs each week and be a member of the club. Good planning helps those types of things.
I think that's such an important part, because I remember when finances weren't going so well for myself, and I needed to keep my hobbies going, because I knew that if I didn't keep them going, then it would spiral into the abyss. So you do need to have that finance to keep your mental health well, your physical health well, and then I suppose your pocket health well as well.
Yeah, definitely. Mental well-being links really well with financial well-being. They're the two things.
I wish it didn't. just sit on a hill and just be fine with myself. It doesn't seem to work that well.
No.
Okay, well, thank you very much, Alex, for sharing this time with us and all your stories. And yes, thank you very much.
Thank you.
All right, cheers.